Thank you. My name is Jack Cole. I'm a retired New Jersey State police officer, detective lieutenant, 26 years in that organization, 14 years undercover in narcotics. And let me tell you something, in that entire 26 years, nothing I did out there reduced the number of people abusing drugs by so much as one person. The war on drugs is not only a failure, it is a self-perpetuating, constantly expanding policy disaster. So when I retired, I felt very bad about my role in implementing this failed war on drugs. I sat down with 4 other police officers and we created this organization, LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And the idea of LEAP is we want to correct all the wrongs that we've been doing for 43 years of the drug war. So what we're calling for is this: legalize and regulate all drugs. Legalize them, take them out of the hands of the criminals, and end the violence. Then when we regulate those drugs, we can end overdose deaths. In my 14 years undercover on the streets, I can tell you, nobody dies of an overdose of drugs because they shoot more and more dope. They die because they don't know how much of that tiny little package of powder they're buying is really the drug and how much is the cutting agent. In an illegal market, they will never know what's in that package. When we regulate the drugs, we can prevent half of all potential cases of AIDS and hepatitis C, because according to the Centers for Disease Control in this country, they tell us that 50% of all new cases can be traced directly back to intravenous drug users sharing needles. If those drugs were legal, they wouldn't need to do that. And once we start treating drug abuse as a health problem, which is what it is, folks, not a crime problem, we can actually stop sacrificing our young people to arrest for nonviolent drug offenses, which we're doing to the tune of 1.7 million per year. And almost 50% of those arrests are for marijuana offenses. So we've made a lot of progress in 12 years since we've been around. When we first came, nobody in the United States was talking about legalizing any drugs. Now last November, we have 2 states that have legalized marijuana, even for recreational purposes. So we're on our way. This last week, Senator Leahy had a judicial committee hearing where he talked about legalizing these drugs and getting the federal agents out of enforcing their laws in states where they've passed this. Things are going our way. They're going our way very quickly, and they should go our way. Let me just give you a quick idea of what has happened in the 43 years we've been fighting the war on drugs. First, they said that if we fight this war hard enough, we will have less drugs in our community. Well, let me tell you, when I was a young cop kicking in doors seizing hard drugs, we measured our largest seizures in pounds, our largest. Today, we measure our largest seizures in tons. That's 2,000 times the problems we had in 1970. 15 tons actually, of methamphetamine, 1 seizure. 20 tons of cocaine, 1 seizure. 23 tons of heroin, 1 seizure. And believe it or not, 242 tons of marijuana, 1 seizure. And let me tell you something. After those humongous seizures were made, it didn't change the price of drugs on the street by so much as 1 penny. And that night, nobody went to sleep without their drug of choice. This war on drugs is doing nothing. Purity level. They say the purity level will go down if we fight the war. Well, when I was a young cop buying heroin, that heroin was analyzed, and what was called heroin, the powder was coming in at 1 1/2% pure. Today, DEA tells us the purity level on street level heroin is 60% pure. That's a problem 40 times greater than it was at the beginning of the war. DEA also tells us that at the beginning of the war, we had about 4 million people in this country above the age of 12 who had used an illegal drug. That was 2% of that population. Today, DEA tells us we have 121 million people in this country who've used an illegal drug. Folks, that's 43% of this population. We went from 2% to 43% under a war on drugs. It's hard to imagine any policy that could be worse. Heroin overdose deaths have increased 9 times their size since we started the war on drugs. So by every single measurement, this is a failed policy. We have to end it. The organization that can do the best about ending this is LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Today, we have over 100,000 police, judges, prosecutors, prison officials, and we have supporters in 120 countries. Folks, we've even got 4 former drug czars of their countries, including the European Union, who sit on our board of directors. We will change this. We have the credibility to change this. But to do it, we need all your help. There's people out there in that audience around you right now wearing these LEAP t-shirts, and each one of them's carried one of these sign-up sheets. If you put your name, your email, and your zip code on it, you get on our newsletter, and when we get 1 million private citizens who say they agree with us, we'll go to Washington and change this. And not only don't we ask you for money to do that, we'll actually give you one of these LEAP badges to take with you. Thanks very much. Have a good weekend.